Chapter 21. Avoiding the bakery wouldn't last much longer. Her meager baking skills needed more training than Eloise could devote at the time. She'd grown far too used to depending on Agnes for all her baking needs. Everyone had to grow up sometime. She would attempt biscuits for dinner. How hard could it be? She hadn't seen Zeke since the Sunday picnic. 4 days. 4 regular days filled with toddler chatter, singing, rocking, washing dishes, laundry, ironing, walking about town, exploring, and watching the prairie come to life, and avoiding accidental meetups with a certain man that made her heart skip on sight. She dropped in on the Palmers and rejoiced when she learned Jess and Roy were officially sparking. The news came as no surprise, but the confirmation was good to hear. Once Roy implied that he was interested in courting, Jessica gladly showed her approval of the situation. Luke spent Tuesday morning fishing with Ma and Pa Davidson, and today Tobias picked him up after nap time to give Eloise a few hours to complete extra spring chores unencumbered. The housework hadn't gotten any easier with Luke's increased mobility. Climbing was his specialty, along with pulling things down upon his head, putting all manner of objects into his mouth, and only growing more adorable through it all. It was a good thing he was cute. He was everything an 18-month-old boy could be. Tobias wouldn't get anything done at the brickyard if Luke were with him. She smiled, thinking of the trouble the boy could find in Tobias's office. Stacks of paper, pens and ink, ledgers. She'd have to wait and see if Tobias ever made an offer like this again. In the meantime, she rolled up the rugs from their bedrooms and dragged them outside one by one. Tobias usually helped hang them, but she was determined to do something on her own for once. After a struggle, she had the largest situated on the sturdy clothesline. The dust from the rugs billowed around her and stuck to the perspiration on her face. The amount of dirt she removed was satisfying, and she enjoyed the exercise. Despite how her hands turned red and rubbed a few spots raw, the energy she expended reaped an immediate and welcome reward. If only her circumstances could be cleaned up like a rug. There was pain in the process, but afterward, it was free of the excess grime and fresh again to fulfill its purpose, to collect more dirt. Okay, so it wasn't the best comparison. Still, the energy required to remove the dirt seemed fitting. Nothing worth having was without its struggle. She watched the dust blow away with the wind, forgotten, and that's where the relationship between the rug and her ended. No matter how much she wanted to forget something, or someone, they wouldn't be forgotten. She kept her hands busy to combat the war taking place between her heart and her mind. She had prayed fervently over the past year for God to take away her pain. He had not, and she had only begun to heal before Zeke arrived. She didn't need another loss, but she reminded herself that Zeke never promised her anything. His going or leaving did not involve her, and Zeke and Rachel, that situation did not involve her either. Whatever almost happened on Sunday should not have happened. Swinging the beater again and again became cathartic. The puffs of dust eventually grew smaller, but she continued until she couldn't even see the slightest bit of dust. Leaning against the post, her chest heaved against her corset. She inspected her raw hands.
"Miss Eloise?"
A young voice called from the street. "Here," she answered. Samuel waved at her from the stone sidewalk. Tucking wayward strands of hair into her head covering, thankful that only Sam saw her in such disarray, she met him in the front yard.
"I tried to run."
He bent over and put his hands on his knees.
"But Felicity..."
He paused again, breathing hard.
"She thought I was playing chase, and then I has to tell her I was on an errand, and now she's waiting by the mercantile, but I says I was coming back."
He straightened again.
Here.
Sam shoved a square page into her hands, folded on itself multiple times.
He says to give you this, and then I forget, and now it's yesterday, but better late than never, right? So anyway, here it is, and I'm sorry it's late.
He scratched a spot on his arm.
What I was thinking is, he could have walked it over here himself and saved his penny.
Who could have?
Mr. James. He gives this to me after breakfast yesterday, but then it was school, and then I found it in my pocket during lunch and remembered today that I forgot. You won't tell, will you? 'Cause I already spent the penny.
Run along with you, she said, waving the note at him. The boy ran down the block, his arms pumped at his sides. Felicity wouldn't have long to wait at his current speed. Eloise stared at the folded page with her name scrawled across the front. Eloise. Meandering to the backyard, she sat against the side of the house in the shade before unfolding the crumpled page.
My little chipmunk,
it began. Why did he keep calling her that? She wasn't little. She was completely average in every way, except for her embarrassing ability to blush at a moment's notice. The only nickname she'd ever gone by was Elle or Ellie. Chipmunk. She practiced the word aloud, enunciating the consonants.
Did I ever thank you for the return of my overcoat? If I didn't, thank you. I confess, I miss you and Boss's company. After our frequent run-ins when I arrived in town, I got used to it. 2 weeks with only one conversation hardly suffices. Regarding Sunday, I find I have things on my mind that I'd like to share with you. I hope you don't find me too brash in writing them down. For example, do you have any idea how many cookies the ladies' sewing bee can put down? I had no idea women were so voracious. For fear of using too many words in honor of our dearest Mr. Oakfield, will you spare a minute? Foremost, I served the ladies coffee and treats yesterday and commented on Mrs. Delia's lavender ensemble. She found my comment most delightful, so I have to thank you for educating me on the proper color terminology. I'm rambling. I hadn't planned to stay in Oglebo for so long, but things have fallen into place at the bakery. The Andersons have been teaching me the most wonderful things about the business. I've been learning more than I thought possible when I took this job.
The next line was scratched out. Squinting at the blotted ink, it resembled a chicken scratching in the dust. She discovered no hint at the original meaning. She read on.
You've been in the front of my thoughts, and I've compiled a list of scriptures that I find comforting. They've brought me through many trials, and I hope you find shelter in them too. I'd enjoy going over them together, but for now these will remind you how much God is a father, a brother, a friend, and a shield. He does love you, somehow even more than an earthly brother ever could. Jesus once said he wished to be a mother hen and gathered the people like chicks under his wing. I'd like to be a chick sometimes. I feel like one often enough. Want to be a little chick with me? Yours, Zeke. P.S. Oh, or OPE, as you people say. I forgot to mention that I have the afternoon free tomorrow. It would be fun to show you a recipe of my mother's. I'll stop over if it's all the same to you. Tell Luke I said hi.
On the bottom of the page, she found hastily scribbled scripture references, many of them from books of the Bible she had never read. He'd scrawled below,
I have more, but this'll get you started.
Eloise didn't know what to do with this man. Zeke didn't fit anywhere she tried to put him. Why did he torment her so? The tug of war he played with her in the middle needed to stop. Surely he didn't know the angst he created in her. Regardless of Rachel, his stories of the West should have been enough warning to her from the beginning. She huffed and let out a mirthless laugh. If not for her meddling, he would have left 2 weeks ago, and she wouldn't be in the position she was in now, staring at his unique handwriting that had been passed to her from a 9-year-old child with smudges of schoolyard dirt on his face. She blushed, thinking of Zeke sitting near her, thumbing through her mother's Bible, reading to her as her father used to read aloud. Well, honestly, how was she to resist her heart when it painted such intimate pictures? What burned her about this letter is that Zeke considered her a friend. He felt companionable toward her. friendly enough that he would suggest such a thing. Underneath the small talk and the laughter lay the sparks and the energy that coursed between them, charging her heart to keep near him, and at the same time raising the alarm for her to stay away. He must be blind to what he did to her. Was he so naive to think he could grow a friendship so easily and then run all the way to the ocean a week later as if nothing were between them? Finding the rug beater, she wrapped a handkerchief around the handle to cushion her throbbing hands, the navy blue one he'd given her upon his arrival. It had somehow made it through the wash weeks ago and stayed in her apron pocket as she had planned for Tobias to return it to Zeke. She should have thrown it away. For now, it served a purpose, and she wasn't going in the house to fetch another. Heaving the second rug over the line, she stood upwind and took a wide swing at the rug. Whop! The dust flew out of the rug in clouds, and it was oddly satisfying to see the large amounts of dirt blowing away. Whop! The wind changed, and it flew into her face. Shielding her eyes, she beat the rug again and again. Before Zeke arrived in town, her grief had become comfortable, familiar. She knew what to expect and how to go about her days. The grief was safe in its own way. Staying in that place was easier than moving forward into a new happiness and being yanked back into grief suddenly, like each time she woke from a nightmare. Instead of moving forward, she was now breaking in half. Half of her was still wandering around a graveyard. The other half was singing like a bluebird in spring, hopping about in the wide open prairie and calling to all the other birds to join her in a dance. This was new territory, and it was exciting, but it frightened the other half of her. "Be careful," it said to her. "Run away," it cautioned. And then there was Rachel. Finding love again was one thing, but Eloise refused to play games with a man who was in love with someone else, or even one preoccupied with a fictitious image of a perfect California. Eloise put her hands on her hips and arched her back. Her shoulders ached and her hands burned from the repercussions of the wooden handle, despite the aid of the handkerchief. She'd finished the second rug, and 2 more remained. She was ready to attack the smaller one from Luke's room. Dragging the one off the line, she rolled it up, stacking it near the first, and filled the space on the line with Luke's. Suddenly, she remembered Sam's words.
"Now it's yesterday,"
and the significance of that statement. The realization hit her like a blizzard. If yesterday was today, that meant Zeke was preparing to visit today. She didn't even have the choice to refuse his company. Now it was too late, and he could be here any minute, yet here she stood, covered in dust and sweating through all of it. Dad, blame it! She did not want to see him. Rather, she wanted to see him too much. She hadn't had enough time to figure out what was going on inside her, much less did she want him to see her in a dust mop. Inviting Zeke in would only waste her afternoon. She would just have to tell him he wasn't welcome. She spoke aloud to the rugs. "He's an enigma."
"Who's an enigma?"
she screamed, whirling around toward the voice behind her. Zeke stood in the yard, resting his hands on his hips with his Stetson shading his eyes from the late afternoon sun. He smiled, as content as her imagined bird on the prairie. Honestly, a man shouldn't be allowed to be so good-looking.